Decode relationships, transform connections. Welcome to the Motivation Hub, ladies and gentlemen. We often hear that being nice is the key to making relationships work, to finding harmony, and to turning conflicts into resolutions. It's an easy narrative to embrace. After all, kindness is universally praised, and many of us have been conditioned to believe that a little compassion, patience, and understanding can soften even the hardest of hearts. Narcissism is a term that we often throw around in casual conversation, but the truth is, it is much more than just an overinflated sense of self-importance or vanity. Narcissism is a deep-seated psychological condition that is rooted in insecurity. It is not merely a personality trait, but rather a pattern of behavior and thinking that is driven by intense feelings of inadequacy. In the world of psychology, the narcissist is someone who, beneath their arrogant, self-absorbed exterior, harbors an overwhelming fear of being insignificant or worthless. The narcissist's behavior is a defense mechanism. They may come across as confident, self-sufficient, and even superior to others, but in reality, their inner world is fraught with self-doubt, fear of rejection, and a constant need for validation. To cope with this internal vulnerability, narcissists develop a grandiose self-image that is both a shield and a weapon. Their sense of superiority becomes the armor that protects them from their deepest fears, that they are unimportant, unworthy, or invisible. At the core of narcissism lies a desperate need for admiration and adulation. This need is not just a desire for compliments or praise, but is a compulsion. Narcissists thrive on the attention of others, constantly seeking out ways to be seen, heard, and validated. It is not just about looking good in the eyes of others. It is about feeling that their existence matters, that they are not invisible, and that they are deserving of admiration. This need for external validation becomes so ingrained in their psyche that it governs their every action, word, and interaction. The narcissist's view of themselves is often inflated to the point of delusion. They believe that they are special, unique, and deserving of treatment that is superior to others. They tend to exaggerate their achievements, talents, and abilities, and they often compare themselves to others in ways that reflect a skewed perception of reality. This overestimation of their value can lead them to act in ways that are entitled and dismissive of others. They believe that the world should cater to their needs and desires, and when those needs aren't met, they can react with anger, frustration, or a sense of being slighted. However, this inflated self-image is incredibly fragile. Narcissists rely heavily on external sources of validation to maintain their sense of worth. And when these sources are threatened or removed, the cracks in their facade begin to show. Underneath their arrogance lies a person who is terrified of being exposed as inadequate. The slightest criticism, rejection, or failure can send them into a spiral of rage, defensiveness, or even depression. This emotional fragility is the reason why narcissists can be so difficult to deal with. They are constantly on edge, monitoring their environment for any sign that their worth might be questioned. This constant need for external validation is what makes narcissism such a destructive force, both for the narcissist and for the people around them. In relationships, whether personal or professional, narcissists often use manipulation to maintain their sense of superiority. They may charm others with their charisma, intelligence, or charm, drawing them in with promises of admiration and recognition. But once they have secured the attention and admiration they crave, they often shift to a pattern of control and exploitation. They expect others to cater to their needs without question, and when those needs are not met, they can become critical, dismissive, or even aggressive. Narcissists can also be highly competitive, viewing others not as equals, but as obstacles to their own success or validation. They tend to surround themselves with people who either affirm their superiority or who are weak enough to be manipulated. If they feel threatened by someone who competes with them or who challenges their authority, they will often resort to tactics such as undermining, belittling, or demeaning that person in order to restore their sense of dominance. This behavior is driven by their deep-seated fear of being exposed as inferior or unworthy. It is also important to note that narcissism is not just a personality trait. It is often a coping mechanism for deeper psychological issues. Many narcissists have experienced childhood trauma, neglect, or emotional abuse, which has shaped their need to protect themselves through their grandiose self-image. They may have been made to feel small, insignificant, or unworthy in their formative years, and as a result, they overcompensate by constructing a persona that is larger than life. The narcissist's behavior is not born out of a genuine desire to harm others, but rather out of an intense need to protect their fragile sense of self. This internal conflict between the grandiose self-satisfaction and the fragile sense of self-worth is what makes narcissism so destructive. On one hand, the narcissist believes they are deserving of admiration and special treatment, but on the other hand, they are deeply afraid of being exposed as fraudulent or inadequate. This tension creates a constant emotional struggle that fuels their need for validation and drives their manipulative behavior. Narcissists often seek out relationships, careers, and situations that will affirm their sense of importance, and they may discard or devalue anyone who threatens that validation. In relationships, this dynamic can be incredibly toxic. The narcissist's constant need for admiration and validation can drain the energy of those around them. Partners, friends, and family members often find themselves walking on eggshells, trying to cater to the narcissist's needs while suppressing their own desires and emotions. This creates an imbalance of power, where the narcissist's needs are prioritized above everyone else's. Over time, this pattern can erode the self-esteem and well-being of those who are involved with a narcissist, leading to feelings of resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Narcissism, at its core, is a coping mechanism for insecurity and fear. It is an attempt to construct an idealized self-image in order to mask feelings of inadequacy. The narcissist is not inherently evil or malicious, but their behavior is driven by a profound need for external validation and a fear of being exposed as inferior. Understanding this core dynamic is essential for recognizing the destructive power of narcissism and for navigating relationships with narcissists in a way that protects your own emotional health and well-being. When dealing with narcissists, one of the most common misconceptions is that being nice can help change their behavior. People often believe that kindness, empathy, and patience will break through the hard exterior of a narcissist, allowing them to open up, reflect, and eventually grow as individuals. However, this approach rarely works. In fact, attempting to fix or change a narcissist by being nice can actually reinforce their negative behavior, perpetuating the cycle of manipulation, control, and emotional turmoil. To understand why this is the case, it is important to look at the psychological dynamics of narcissism and how narcissists respond to kindness. At its core, narcissism is about deep insecurity and a constant need for validation. Narcissists crave admiration and attention from others, as this external validation temporarily alleviates their internal sense of inadequacy. When someone acts kindly toward them, they may initially respond positively, interpreting the kindness as a source of affirmation for their inflated self-image. However, this is not a genuine connection or emotional exchange for the narcissist. It is merely another form of reinforcement that sustains their need for attention and admiration. The narcissist sees kindness not as a gesture of goodwill, but as an opportunity to extract further validation, to feel superior, and to maintain their control over the relationship dynamic. When someone is overly nice to a narcissist, the narcissist may begin to view them as an easy target for manipulation. The narcissist's emotional world is built around control, and they quickly learn that kindness is a tool that can be used to get what they want. Whether it's seeking admiration, avoiding accountability, or manipulating a situation to their advantage, the narcissist will exploit the niceness of others to maintain their sense of dominance. In their eyes, being nice is simply an opening to extract more from people who are willing to cater to their needs. Therefore, the act of being nice does not challenge the narcissist's behavior. Instead, It plays into the narrative that their inflated sense of importance should be supported, nurtured, and unquestioned. Furthermore, being nice often leads to a cycle of appeasement. People who interact with narcissists may feel compelled to continue being kind because they believe it will soften the narcissist, leading to a better relationship. However, this is a false hope. Narcissists are not motivated by empathy or the desire to connect on a deep emotional level. Their focus is entirely on themselves and their own needs. Therefore, when someone is excessively nice, the narcissist may begin to take that kindness for granted. They come to expect it, and it no longer holds any real value. This creates a dangerous dynamic in which the narcissist feels entitled to others' kindness, while the person offering it becomes emotionally drained and unappreciated. In addition to reinforcing the narcissist's sense of entitlement, being nice also encourages the narcissist to avoid personal responsibility and self-reflection. Narcissists have a fragile ego that is highly resistant to criticism or negative feedback. When someone is overly nice to them, they are less likely to challenge their behavior because kindness does not force the narcissist to confront their own flaws. Instead, they remain in their self-constructed bubble of superiority, where their actions go unchallenged and their distorted sense of reality persists. Kindness, in this context, becomes a tool for enabling the narcissist's dysfunction rather than a catalyst for positive change. Additionally, when someone is consistently nice to a narcissist, they may unknowingly teach the narcissist that their bad behavior will not be met with consequences. Narcissists thrive on control, and they will push boundaries to test how far they can go in manipulating others. If a narcissist consistently receives a kind response in the face of their selfishness or cruelty, they learn that there are no real consequences for their actions. This reinforces the belief that they can behave in any way they choose without facing the repercussions that others might experience. In essence, kindness without boundaries simply enables the narcissist's toxic behavior, making it even harder to change their patterns in the long run. Furthermore, being nice to a narcissist can put you in a position of emotional subjugation. Narcissists often lack empathy, meaning they are unable to recognize or care about the feelings of others. When someone acts kindly toward them, the narcissist does not perceive it as an opportunity for mutual respect or understanding, but as an avenue to further control and dominate the relationship. The narcissist may even come to see their kindness as a form of weakness, interpreting it as a signal that the other person is easily manipulated. Over time, this dynamic can lead to emotional exhaustion for the person being nice, as they continually give without receiving any meaningful emotional connection in return. The kindness they offer is often unreciprocated, leading to feelings of frustration and resentment. Moreover, attempting to change a narcissist through kindness ignores the fundamental nature of narcissism. It is not an issue of being misunderstood or miscommunicated, but rather a deep-rooted psychological condition. Narcissism is not a personality quirk that can be resolved through simple acts of kindness or compassion. It is an ingrained pattern of behavior that is resistant to change unless the narcissist is willing to confront the core issues of their own self-image and insecurity. This is why kindness alone cannot penetrate the defensive walls that narcissists have built around themselves. Without a willingness to engage in self-reflection and acknowledge their emotional wounds, narcissists will continue to rely on their defensive mechanisms, including manipulation, control, and exploitation. It is also important to recognize that the idea of being nice to a narcissist often comes from a place of fear or a desire to keep the peace. People who are dealing with narcissists may feel pressured to keep the relationship smooth by being overly accommodating or excessively polite. This behavior stems from a fear of conflict, criticism, or rejection from the narcissist. However, this fear-based approach only exacerbates the problem. By continually prioritizing the narcissist's needs and emotions above your own, you are reinforcing the very dynamic that keeps the narcissist in control. The narcissist thrives on this fear and manipulation, and the more you submit to it, the more entrenched their toxic behavior becomes. In conclusion, being nice to a narcissist is not an effective way to change their behavior. In fact, it often reinforces the very patterns of manipulation and control that make narcissism so destructive. Narcissists do not respond to kindness in the same way that other individuals might. They do not view kindness as a genuine connection or a pathway to change. Instead, they see it as a means to maintain their dominance and extract further validation. True change in a narcissist can only occur when they are confronted with their behavior and held accountable for the harm they cause. Without this confrontation, kindness is simply a tool for enabling their toxic patterns, leaving the person offering it emotionally drained and unfulfilled. Dealing with narcissists is not easy, and one of the most important aspects of managing a relationship with them is setting and enforcing boundaries. Narcissists often do not respect the emotional or physical boundaries of others because they operate from a place of entitlement and self-absorption. They see the world through a lens that places their needs and desires at the center, often disregarding the needs or feelings of others. In many cases, narcissists will push and test boundaries in subtle or overt ways to see how much they can get away with. This behavior is a direct consequence of their inability or unwillingness to respect the autonomy of those around them. However, setting boundaries is one of the most effective strategies for dealing with narcissistic behavior, as it not only protects you, but also sends a clear message that their manipulative tactics will not be tolerated. Setting boundaries with a narcissist can be incredibly difficult, especially for those who are not accustomed to standing firm or who have a tendency to avoid conflict. Narcissists are often skilled at exploiting people's kindness, guilt, or desire for harmony, and they may react negatively when they encounter resistance. However, the importance of boundaries cannot be overstated. Without boundaries, a narcissist will continue to push, manipulate, and control, taking advantage of anyone who allows them to do so. The very nature of narcissism makes it crucial for the person dealing with a narcissist to establish clear lines and communicate those lines effectively. Boundaries with narcissists should not be seen as a form of punishment or an attempt to control them in return, but rather as a form of self-care and self-respect. The individual setting the boundaries is protecting their own emotional well-being, asserting their autonomy, and refusing to allow the narcissist to infringe upon their personal space or emotional health. Narcissists are typically oblivious to the feelings of others, and they may not respect boundaries unless they are enforced consistently and clearly. One of the key elements of effective boundary setting is that these boundaries must be firm, non-negotiable, and repeated if necessary. If boundaries are set but not enforced, narcissists will view them as suggestions rather than rules. They are likely to test the limits and try to push past them, seeing how much they can get away with. This is why it is essential to be clear and unwavering when communicating boundaries. The enforcement of boundaries requires a person to be assertive, not aggressive, but firm in their stance. When a narcissist crosses a boundary, the response should be immediate and direct. It is important to communicate the consequences of their actions in a way that leaves no room for ambiguity. For example, if a narcissist continues to interrupt or belittle someone during a conversation, the response should be something like, "I do not appreciate being interrupted, and if this continues, I will leave this conversation." The narcissist needs to know that there are real consequences to their behavior, and that those consequences will be followed through with. It is easy to give in to the narcissist's attempts to manipulate or make you feel guilty, but it is important to remember that their behavior is not about you. It's about their need for control and validation. Narcissists often employ a variety of tactics to break down boundaries, such as guilt tripping, gaslighting, or playing the victim. For example, a narcissist might accuse someone of being too rigid or too controlling when they set a boundary, or they might try to make the person feel selfish or unreasonable for wanting to protect their own emotional space. These tactics are designed to create doubt in the mind of the person setting the boundary, making them question their own needs and desires. The narcissist's goal is to make you feel guilty for asserting your boundaries so that they can continue their manipulative behavior. In these cases, it is essential to stay firm and not give in to emotional pressure. Narcissists are adept at creating confusion and uncertainty in those around them, and their attacks on your boundaries are meant to destabilize your sense of self-worth and weaken your resolve. An important aspect of setting boundaries with a narcissist is recognizing when to distance yourself emotionally. Narcissists can be incredibly draining, and their constant need for validation, attention, and admiration can take an emotional toll on others. In order to protect yourself, it may be necessary to limit your emotional involvement with the narcissist, especially when their behavior becomes too overwhelming or toxic. Emotional detachment does not mean becoming cold or indifferent, but rather maintaining a healthy level of emotional distance so that you are not overly affected by their manipulations or criticisms. This is not about disengaging entirely from the person, but rather about protecting your emotional well-being and keeping your sense of self intact. Another important aspect of boundaries is recognizing that narcissists are not likely to change. No matter how kind or patient you are, the narcissist's behavior is unlikely to shift unless they are motivated to do so. And even then, change is usually slow and difficult. Therefore, it is crucial to accept that your boundaries are not negotiable and that they are in place to protect you from emotional harm. It is important to stop trying to fix the narcissist or change their behavior through compassion alone. Narcissists are not typically receptive to feedback or self-reflection, as they are so focused on maintaining their inflated self-image. Instead of focusing on their behavior, focus on what you can control, your own actions, and how you respond to their behavior. Setting boundaries with a narcissist can also involve making difficult decisions about the nature of your relationship with them. In some cases, the narcissist's behavior may be so toxic that it becomes necessary to limit or even cut off contact altogether. This is particularly true in relationships where the narcissist's manipulation, gaslighting, or emotional abuse has reached a point where it is no longer healthy to continue engaging with them. It is important to recognize that your mental and emotional well-being must come first, and that continuing to tolerate a narcissist's behavior can cause long-term damage to your self-esteem and sense of identity. In extreme cases, the most effective way to deal with a narcissist is to remove them from your life entirely, as difficult as that decision may be. However, even when physical distance is not an option, emotional boundaries can provide a sense of control and autonomy. When you establish clear emotional boundaries, you can maintain your sense of self, even in the face of the narcissist's attempts to control or manipulate you. This might mean not engaging in certain conversations, not allowing yourself to be drawn into drama, or not allowing the narcissist to guilt trip you into doing things you don't want to do. By maintaining your boundaries, you not only protect yourself from the narcissist's toxic behavior, but you also send a powerful message that you will no longer tolerate mistreatment. In conclusion, setting and enforcing boundaries with a narcissist is an essential part of protecting your emotional health and maintaining control over your interactions with them. Narcissists will often push, test, and manipulate boundaries in order to gain power and control, but when those boundaries are firm and non-negotiable, they are less likely to succeed. It requires consistency, assertiveness, and emotional resilience to maintain boundaries with a narcissist, but it is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself from their destructive behavior. Boundaries are not just about limiting the narcissist's influence. They are about preserving your own sense of self-worth, autonomy, and emotional well-being. When dealing with narcissists, one of the most challenging aspects is recognizing the reality that they are unlikely to change. Narcissists, by nature, have an ingrained pattern of thinking and behavior that revolves around their inflated sense of self-importance, their need for constant admiration, and their lack of empathy for others. At their core, narcissists are not interested in self-reflection or personal growth unless they perceive it as something that will benefit them directly. This means that no matter how much kindness, patience, or understanding you offer, it is unlikely to inspire meaningful change in their behavior. Narcissism is not a personality flaw that can be corrected through simple intervention. It is a deeply entrenched psychological condition that often stems from childhood experiences such as neglect, emotional abuse, or overindulgence, which cause the narcissist to develop a fragile sense of self-worth. As a result, narcissists tend to build a defensive structure around their egos that is difficult to penetrate. This defensive mechanism protects them from confronting their vulnerabilities, and they rarely seek or accept help to alter their behavior unless there is an immediate, direct payoff to them. Narcissists tend to reject introspection because it forces them to confront their insecurities, which is a terrifying proposition for them. One of the key reasons narcissists are resistant to change is that their behavior is driven by a need for control. Their inflated sense of self-importance serves as a coping mechanism to maintain a sense of dominance in their relationships and in their interactions with the world. If a narcissist were to acknowledge their flaws or shortcomings, it would destabilize their self-image and diminish their perceived power. This is why they often react with defensiveness, aggression, or emotional withdrawal when faced with criticism or feedback. Instead of seeing criticism as an opportunity for growth, they view it as an existential threat to their carefully constructed persona. Because of this, narcissists rarely take responsibility for their actions or consider how their behavior impacts others. This resistance to change is compounded by the narcissist's inability or unwillingness to empathize with others. Empathy is a crucial component of personal growth, but narcissists lack the ability to truly understand or care about how their actions affect other people. Their worldview is centered on themselves, and they see others primarily as tools to either validate or serve their needs. This lack of empathy makes it difficult for narcissists to recognize the harm they cause or to understand the emotional impact of their behavior on others. As a result, they do not feel compelled to change their actions or to make amends for the damage they have done. In relationships, this lack of empathy and resistance to change often leads to a cycle of disappointment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. People who are involved with narcissists often invest a great deal of time and energy into trying to fix or help the narcissist, believing that their kindness or support will eventually lead to positive change. However, this hope is usually in vain, as the narcissist is not capable of the introspection required for true change. Instead, the narcissist may continue to manipulate, exploit, and disregard the needs of others, while the people around them become increasingly worn down by the emotional toll. Furthermore, narcissists often seek out relationships that reinforce their sense of superiority and entitlement. They may surround themselves with people who either admire them or are willing to tolerate their behavior in exchange for some form of validation. This reinforces the narcissist's belief that they are deserving of special treatment and that their actions are justified, regardless of how they treat others. In some cases, narcissists may even push away individuals who challenge their sense of importance or who refuse to indulge their need for constant admiration. This creates a feedback loop in which the narcissist's behavior goes unchecked and they are not held accountable for their actions.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you encounter a narcissist, you are not simply facing a difficult person. You are dealing with someone who thrives on distortion, manipulation, and control. They do not seek relationships, they seek dominion. They do not offer love, they offer dependency. But here's the fundamental truth: their power is an illusion. It is fragile, artificial, and destined to collapse. Discernment is one of the most powerful shields God grants you against the control of a narcissist. At first, the manipulation is subtle, almost imperceptible. Narcissists do not seize control in one dramatic moment. They do it through a series of small, calculated actions. They rewrite reality in a way that seems plausible. They twist words, shift blame, and make you question your own perceptions. This is how gaslighting works. It is not just about lying, but about creating a version of events where they are always right and you are always wrong. You begin to wonder if you are overreacting, if you misunderstood, if perhaps you are the one at fault. This erosion of self-trust is how the narcissist establishes their reign. God, however, does not leave you defenseless. He gives you the ability to see through deception. This does not happen all at once. It is a process. At first, you notice small inconsistencies. They say one thing, but their actions do not align. They claim to love you, yet they constantly belittle you. They insist they are looking out for your best interests, yet somehow you always end up feeling depleted, controlled, and unsure of yourself. The discomfort grows. It nags at you in the quiet moments when you are alone, when the noise of their justifications fades and you are left with an undeniable sense that something is wrong. This is not paranoia, this is discernment awakening. As you grow in awareness, the narcissist's tactics become more transparent. Their once convincing excuses start to sound hollow. You realize they are not simply misunderstood or under stress, they are choosing to manipulate. The way they twist conversations, shift blame, and rewrite history is not accidental. It is deliberating. This realization is both liberating and terrifying. Liberating because you finally see the truth. Terrifying because it means accepting that the relationship was never what you thought it was. This is the moment where many struggle. Seeing the truth does not always mean you are ready to act on it. You might still hold on to hope. You might still try to rationalize their behavior. After all, the narcissist is skilled at appearing remorseful when they feel their control slipping. They might make grand gestures, offer hollow apologies, or temporarily change their behavior just enough to pull you back in. This is where discernment must deepen. It is not just about recognizing deception, but resisting the temptation to believe in false hope. God grants wisdom not only to see, but to act accordingly. As discernment strengthens, the narcissist's grip weakens. You no longer engage in their mind games. You stop explaining yourself, defending yourself, or trying to prove your worth to someone who has no intention of truly valuing you. You recognize the cycles, the love bombing, the devaluation, the gaslighting, the guilt tripping, and you refuse to participate. Where once you might have been confused and reactive, you now see their behavior for what it is, manipulation. And the moment their tactics no longer work on you, their control begins to crumble. This is why narcissists fear discernment. They thrive in the shadows, in ambiguity, in your doubt. But when God grants clarity, their power dissolves. You do not need to fight, to argue, to convince them of your worth. You simply need to see clearly and walk in that truth. The battle is not won through confrontation, but through awareness. Once you see them for who they truly are, you can never unsee it. And that is where freedom begins. When dealing with a narcissist, one of the greatest battles you will face is over your identity. A narcissist does not just want control over your actions, they want control over your perception of yourself. They cannot tolerate independence, strength, or self-assurance in others because those qualities threaten their ability to dominate. Their entire strategy revolves around reshaping your identity to fit their needs. They do this not by force, but by gradual erosion, making you question who you are, what you believe, and whether you are worthy of love and respect. At first, their control may seem like guidance, concern, or even affection. They position themselves as the one who truly understands you, the one who sees your flaws and can help you improve. But over time, their words and actions chip away at your self-perception. They criticize in ways that seem constructive, but are actually designed to make you dependent on their approval. You start doubting your own abilities, second-guessing your choices, and feeling as though you are not enough. The narcissist's approval becomes the measure of your worth, and their rejection becomes proof of your inadequacy. This is by design. If they can make you feel small, you will look to them for validation. God does not create you to live in confusion, self-doubt, or emotional servitude. He creates you with purpose, value, and an identity that no human being has the right to redefine. One of the most powerful ways he shields you is by reminding you who you truly are. This often happens in quiet moments when you step away from the chaos, when the narcissist's voice is no longer drowning out your own thoughts, when you allow yourself to reflect on who you were before their influence took hold. It is in these moments that God speaks, not through the noise of manipulation, but through the steady, unwavering truth of your worth. The process of reclaiming your identity is not easy. because the narcissist has spent so much time convincing you that your worth is tied to their perception. You may struggle with feelings of guilt, unworthiness, or even fear of stepping outside their control. But as God strengthens your identity, those false narratives begin to lose their grip. You remember what it feels like to think for yourself, to trust your own instincts, to believe in your own strength. You begin to see that your value does not depend on whether the narcissist approves of you or not. It does not diminish because someone refuses to recognize it. This shift in perspective is what threatens the narcissist the most. They relied on your insecurity to maintain control. When you stop seeking their validation, they lose their hold over you. They may escalate their tactics, trying to pull you back in with guilt, manipulation, or even rage. But the difference now is that you are no longer defined by their opinion. Their words no longer penetrate the way they once did. You see through their attempts to undermine you, and you no longer feel the need to prove yourself to them. God does not just remind you of your worth, He surrounds you with people and experiences that reinforce it. When you step out of the narcissist's influence, you begin to connect with those who appreciate you for who you are, not for how well you serve their ego. You rediscover passions and interests that were once suppressed. You start making choices that align with your true self, rather than choices designed to appease someone who will never be satisfied. The more you embrace the identity God has given you, the more unshakable you become. The narcissist's power crumbles when they can no longer dictate your sense of self. When you stand firm in who you are, their words lose their sting, their manipulation loses its effect, and their presence no longer carries the weight it once did. You step into a life that is no longer defined by fear or control, but by confidence and freedom. Truth is the most powerful force that dismantles the narcissist's control. Their entire strategy revolves around deception, creating a false reality where they are always right, always the victim, always the superior force. They manipulate words, distort memories, and project their own faults onto others, all in an effort to maintain their grip over you. They do not just lie outright, they redefine the meaning of truth itself. Over time, you begin to question your own judgment, your own experiences, and even your own emotions. This is how they keep you trapped. Not through physical chains, but through mental and emotional imprisonment. God, in His wisdom, grants you the ability to see beyond their illusions. At first, this awareness comes in brief moments, when a story they tell does not quite add up, when their actions contradict their words, when you feel an unease deep within you that you cannot explain. These moments are the cracks in the illusion, the first signs that something is not as it seems. But the narcissist is skilled at covering those cracks. They dismiss your concerns, mock your intuition, and make you feel as though questioning them is a sign of your own weakness or instability. And so you push those thoughts away. You silence your own inner voice, believing that if you just try harder, if you just trust them more, if you just become the person they want you to be, the confusion will disappear. But the truth does not stay buried. God does not allow deception to last forever. The more you seek clarity, the more you begin to see. You notice the patterns, how they twist conversations to make you doubt yourself, how they shift blame whenever they are confronted, how they rewrite history to make themselves look innocent and you look like the problem. You begin to recognize that their apologies are never genuine, that their kindness only appears when they need something from you, that their cruelty is not accidental but intentional. This realization is painful. It is not easy to accept that someone you trusted, someone you may have loved, has been manipulating you. It is tempting to turn away from this truth, to excuse their behavior, to cling to the hope that they will change. But once you see, you cannot unsee. The weight of truth is heavy, but it is also liberating, because with truth comes the power to choose, to step out of their control, to reclaim your own mind, to define your own reality instead of living in theirs. The narcissist fears truth more than anything else. That is why they react so strongly when confronted with it. They may lash out in anger, launching personal attacks to make you feel small. They may play the victim, turning the situation around to make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself. They may even retreat temporarily, only to return later with a carefully crafted apology, a promise to change, a plea for another chance. But now you recognize these tactics for what they are. You are no longer swayed by their words because you see the truth behind them. God's protection is not always about removing you from the situation instantly. Sometimes it is about equipping you with the vision to navigate through it. He sharpens your discernment, strengthens your resolve, and reminds you that your worth is not dependent on the narcissist's validation. He gives you the wisdom to understand that love is not supposed to feel like control, that relationships built on fear and confusion are not of him, and that you do not have to stay bound to someone who thrives on deception. As the truth becomes clearer, their power weakens. You stop engaging in their arguments because you see that their goal is not resolution but dominance. You stop explaining yourself because you realize they are not interested in understanding you, only in controlling you. You stop seeking their approval because you understand that no matter what you do, it will never be enough for them. And in that moment, their hold over you begins to break. Truth is the great equalizer. It does not shout, it does not argue, it does not demand, it simply stands immovable, undeniable. And when you stand in truth, when you choose to see things as they are rather than as the narcissist wants you to believe, their reign begins to crumble. Their manipulation loses its grip. Their control fades into nothing, and you, once bound by their web of lies, walk forward in the light, free at last. Justice is not always immediate, nor is it always visible in the way we expect. When dealing with a narcissist, it often seems as though they continue to manipulate, deceive, and exploit others without consequence. They move through life twisting the truth, shifting blame, and evading accountability, leaving behind a trail of broken people who wonder if they will ever see justice served. It can feel frustrating, even infuriating, to watch them appear to succeed despite their actions. But what we must understand is that justice, when it comes from God, does not operate on our timeline. It does not always arrive in dramatic fashion, nor does it always take the form of the punishment we imagine. However, it is always certain. A narcissist's world is built on a fragile foundation of lies. They create illusions of power, invulnerability, and control, but these illusions require constant maintenance. They must continually manipulate those around them, reinforce their false narratives, and ensure that their victims remain confused and dependent. This takes energy. The more they deceive, the more complicated their web of lies becomes. They may appear composed on the outside, but internally they are constantly at war, fearful of being exposed, paranoid about losing control, and desperate to maintain the false image they have constructed. The cracks in their foundation are always there. Over time, these cracks grow. The narcissist cannot maintain their control indefinitely because deception is inherently unstable. Eventually, the truth finds its way through, no matter how well they try to suppress it. Sometimes their downfall comes through external exposure. Someone finally sees them for who they are, and their influence begins to crumble. Other times their downfall is internal. The weight of their own lies, the emptiness of their existence, and the loneliness they inevitably create for themselves. A narcissist drives away genuine love, authentic relationships, and true happiness because they are incapable of valuing anything beyond their own ego. Even when they appear to be thriving, they are living in a self-imposed prison, constantly needing to control, manipulate, and seek validation. This is not a life of peace. God's justice works in ways that often go unseen at first. When he removes you from the narcissist's grasp, that in itself is justice. No longer do they have the power to steal your joy, distort your reality, or drain your energy. No longer do they get to use you as a source of validation or emotional supply. That loss alone is devastating to them. They may pretend they are unaffected, but deep down they feel it. The more people see through them, the more their influence diminishes. The relationships they once controlled begin to unravel. The lies they told come back to haunt them. Some narcissists face direct consequences: exposure, social rejection, professional failure, or even legal repercussions. But even those who seem to escape worldly justice cannot escape the inner consequences of their actions. They are forever restless, never satisfied, always searching for the next source of attention, control, or power. They do not experience deep, meaningful connections because their relationships are built on manipulation rather than genuine love. They live in constant fear of being abandoned, of losing their influence, of no longer being able to control those around them. This is its own form of punishment, one that follows them wherever they go. Meanwhile, those they sought to break find healing. God does not allow suffering without purpose. He takes the pain they inflicted and uses it to strengthen, refine, and elevate those who endured it. He restores clarity, peace, and self-worth. While the narcissist remains trapped in their cycle of deception, their former victims move forward, wiser and stronger. The very people they sought to weaken become the ones who outgrow them, thrive beyond them, and ultimately render them irrelevant. Justice is not always loud, but it is always certain. The narcissist may believe they have escaped consequences, but they cannot escape themselves. The very traits that once allowed them to manipulate others, deception, arrogance, and emotional detachment, become the traits that ensure their own downfall. And while they remain trapped in a world of their own making, those they once controlled walk away, free. Healing from the damage caused by a narcissist is not an instant event but a journey, one that requires strength, patience, and divine guidance. When you have been subjected to manipulation, control, and emotional exploitation, the wounds do not simply disappear the moment you break free. They linger in the form of self-doubt, trust issues, and emotional exhaustion. You may carry the weight of their words, the confusion they instilled in you, and the fear that somehow you will encounter the same pain again. This is where God steps in, not just as a protector, but as a healer, restoring what was broken and rebuilding what was torn down. At first, healing can feel like an impossible task. The narcissist has spent so much time planting doubts in your mind that you may question whether you even deserve to heal. Their voice may still echo in your thoughts, convincing you that you were the problem, that you overreacted, that you will never truly be free of their influence. These lingering thoughts are not truth, but remnants of the control they once had. It takes time to separate their voice from your own, to recognize that the narratives they imposed on you were never reality. God begins healing by restoring your ability to see yourself clearly, not through the distorted lens of the narcissist's manipulation, but through his truth. As this process unfolds, you may experience waves of grief. Grief for the time lost, for the energy spent trying to please someone who was never satisfied, for the love you gave that was never truly reciprocated. There is grief in realizing that the relationship was built on illusion, that the connection you believed in was one-sided, that the person you once trusted was never who they claimed to be. But God does not allow grief to consume you. He gives you the space to feel, to process, to mourn what was taken from you, and then He gently leads you forward. Healing does not mean forgetting what happened or pretending it did not hurt. It means learning to live beyond it, to no longer be defined by the pain inflicted upon you. One of the most powerful aspects of God's healing is the restoration of trust, not just in others, but in yourself. A narcissist erodes your ability to trust your own instincts. They make you question your perceptions, your emotions, your ability to make sound decisions. Even after they are gone, this self-doubt can linger. You may find yourself hesitating, second-guessing every choice, fearing that you will fall into another manipulative relationship. God strengthens you by reaffirming the wisdom He has placed within you. He reminds you that the very experiences that once made you vulnerable have now made you wiser. The lessons learned through pain are not meant to paralyze you with fear, but to equip you with discernment. Healing also comes in the form of rediscovering joy. A narcissist thrives on control, and one of the ways they maintain control is by keeping you in a state of emotional depletion. They drain your energy, suppress your happiness, and condition you to believe that peace is only possible through their approval. Once free from their influence, joy may feel unfamiliar at first. You may struggle with guilt, as though feeling happy means betraying the past. But joy is not something you need to earn. It is something God freely gives. He restores laughter, creativity, passion, and the simple ability to enjoy life without fear. As the healing continues, you begin to recognize that your story is not one of defeat, but of resilience. What the narcissist intended for harm, God uses for growth. The strength you develop, the wisdom you gain, and the clarity you achieve all become part of the foundation upon which you rebuild your life. You learn to set boundaries not out of fear, but out of self-respect. You learn to walk away from toxicity without feeling the need to explain or justify yourself. You embrace the freedom of being fully yourself, unshackled from the expectations and demands of someone who never had your best interests at heart. God's healing is not just about recovery, it is about renewal. You do not simply return to who you were before the narcissist's influence. You emerge stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to the truth of who you are. The scars remain, but they no longer define you. The pain becomes a memory, but it no longer controls you. What once seemed like an inescapable cycle of manipulation and suffering becomes a testimony of survival and transformation. And in the end, the greatest victory is not just that you escaped the narcissist's grasp, but that you became someone they could never break. When you break free from the grip of a narcissist, one of the most powerful transformations that takes place is the rediscovery of your purpose. A narcissist does not just seek to control your actions, they seek to limit your vision, keeping you small, uncertain, and focused entirely on them. They do this by instilling fear, doubt, and confusion, making you question your abilities, your dreams, and even your right to pursue a meaningful life. They thrive on keeping you trapped in a cycle of emotional servitude where your energy is consumed by their demands, their drama, and their expectations. But once their control is broken, the path to your true purpose begins to unfold, and God steps in to guide you towards something far greater than you ever imagined. At first, stepping into your purpose can feel overwhelming. After spending so much time under the weight of manipulation, you may struggle to remember who you were before the narcissist's influence took hold. You may have once had dreams, passions, and aspirations that were slowly diminished under the constant pressure of their control. Perhaps you were told that your ambitions were foolish, that your ideas were unrealistic, that you were not capable of achieving anything significant. Over time, these messages may have taken root, making you hesitant to step out in confidence. But God does not allow the lies of the past to define your future. He begins revealing glimpses of the purpose that was always within you, the path that was waiting for you beyond the narcissist's shadow. One of the first steps in rediscovering your purpose is breaking free from the mindset of limitation. A narcissist's influence creates an invisible prison, convincing you that you must live within the constraints they imposed. They make you feel as though you are only valuable when serving their needs, as though your worth is tied to how much you accommodate them. But when you step away, you begin to see that there is an entire world beyond their control, a world where your value is not determined by someone else's validation. This is where God begins to work, opening doors, shifting your perspective, and leading you toward opportunities that once seemed out of reach. As you step into your purpose, you may encounter resistance, not just from the remnants of the narcissist's influence, but from within yourself. Doubt may creep in, whispering that you are not ready, that you are not strong enough, that you do not have what it takes to create a meaningful life. These doubts are the echoes of past conditioning, the last attempts of the chains that once held you. But God replaces fear with confidence. He reminds you that you were created for more than survival, that your experiences were not in vain, that even the pain you endured has shaped you into someone capable of greater things. The struggles you faced become part of your strength, equipping you with wisdom, resilience, and a deeper understanding of yourself and others. Finding your purpose does not always mean a dramatic change overnight. It often begins in small ways, rediscovering what brings you joy, engaging in activities that reignite your passion, surrounding yourself with people who uplift and support you. As you take these steps, clarity begins to emerge. You start to see patterns in your experiences, lessons that have shaped you, strengths that have developed in the midst of adversity. You realize that what once seemed like setbacks were actually preparations for something greater. The very things that were meant to break you have instead refined you, giving you the insight and determination to move forward with purpose. God's guidance in this journey is unmistakable. Doors begin to open, opportunities arise, and you find yourself drawn toward paths that align with your true self. The fear that once held you back begins to fade, replaced by a growing sense of confidence and direction. The more you embrace this journey, the less power the narcissist's past influence has over you. Their words, their opinions, their attempts to diminish you no longer carry weight. You see them for what they are, distractions, attempts to pull you back into a place of limitation. But you no longer live in that space. You have stepped into something greater, something they can no longer control. The ultimate realization in this journey is that your purpose was never tied to the narcissist. They may have tried to shape your identity, to control your choices, to make you believe that your life revolved around them, but they were never the author of your story. God is. And His plans for you go far beyond anything the narcissist ever allowed you to see. As you move forward, you recognize that their control was temporary, but your purpose is eternal. The life you are building is no longer defined by their limitations, but by the limitless possibilities that come from walking in truth, in strength, and in divine purpose. Breaking free from a narcissist's grip is not just about escaping their control. It is about reclaiming your mind, your heart, and your soul. It is about seeing the truth, trusting in justice, embracing healing, and stepping into the purpose that was always meant for you. The narcissist may have tried to distort your reality, manipulate your emotions, and keep you trapped in a cycle of confusion, but they have no power over the truth. And the truth is this: you are stronger than their deception, greater than their control, and destined for a life beyond their reach. God's protection does not just remove you from harm, it equips you with the wisdom, strength, and resilience to rise above it. You are not a victim of their manipulation. You are a survivor, a warrior, and a testament to the power of truth and divine justice. Every step you take away from their influence is a step toward freedom, peace, and the life that was always meant for you. As you continue forward, know that you are not alone. You are guided, protected, and empowered by something far greater than the narcissist's temporary hold. You are stepping into clarity, healing, and purpose, and no force of manipulation or deception can stop you. Trust in the process, believe in your strength, and walk boldly into the future that is waiting for you. Good luck on your journey of healing and transformation. May you find peace in the truth, strengthen your faith, and joy in the freedom you have reclaimed. Thank you for taking the time to embrace this message. Your courage and resilience are an inspiration. Stay strong, stay true, and never forget the power that lies within you.
Most men will never say it out loud, but there's something they deeply long for in the bedroom that goes far beyond just physical pleasure. It's probably not what you expect, and once you truly understand it, it can change the way you connect with your partner for the better. People often assume men are simple when it comes to intimacy, but that's not the whole story. Underneath that surface, there's a deep emotional and mental need that men usually keep to themselves. When this need is fulfilled, it doesn't just make the experience better, it makes the whole relationship stronger and more meaningful. Today, we're diving into 6 things men deeply want in bed, but rarely say out loud. Men don't just want to feel wanted. It's not only about seeking attention. It's about something much more meaningful. A man wants to feel chosen, not just accepted. He wants to see that look in your eyes, the one that tells him he's powerful, attractive, and captive. This goes way beyond words. It's in your energy, the way you carry yourself, and those small silent messages you send without saying a thing. A soft touch, a look that lingers, or how you respond when he's near you. All of it matters more than you know. There's a common idea that men are mostly driven by physical desire, but the truth is, they also long for emotional and mental validation. They don't want to feel like they're just playing a role. They want to feel appreciated for who they really are. When a man senses that his partner sees him as strong, capable, and genuinely attractive, something powerful happens. His confidence grows, his passion deepens, and intimacy becomes something much richer. It's not about stroking his ego. It's about honoring his deep need to feel important and seen. True admiration isn't just giving a few kind words here and there. Men can feel it when compliments are fake or said just to be polite. What truly moves them is real, sincere appreciation. Instead of just saying things like "you look good" or "you're handsome," speak from the heart. Tell him how his touch makes you feel alive. Whisper to him how his strength excites you. Let him know that just having him near shifts your mood completely. These small but powerful expressions of admiration fuel his masculine spirit. They make him more present, more emotionally connected, and more willing to give in return, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually as well. Desire also means being involved. A man wants to feel your passion. He doesn't want to feel like you're just doing it out of duty. What lights him up the most is knowing you enjoy being with him, that you're into it just as much as he is. If he feels like you're distant or just going through the motions, it can be disheartening. But if he feels your excitement, your craving for him, your love for his scent, your hunger for his presence, it sets everything on fire. Real passion is a two-way street. It's a connection between two people feeding each other's desire. Another key part is responsiveness. Men love knowing they're making a difference. When you respond with movement, sound, or even a soft word, it tells him he's doing something right. This isn't about pretending or putting on a show. It's about allowing yourself to be in the moment, to show him that he's affecting you. That kind of feedback gives him a deep sense of pride and connection. It makes him feel strong, appreciated, and needed in a way that's incredibly meaningful. But here's something people often forget. Consistency matters just as much. At the beginning of a relationship, everything feels exciting. There's passion, surprise, and that thrill of something new. But over time, life gets busy, routines take over, and sometimes that spark begins to fade. Men quietly fear becoming just another part of your life, like a roommate or a provider, instead of the one who once made your heart race. Keeping the connection alive means showing him over and over again that he's still the one, that he still turns you on, that you still see him as the man who made you fall for him in the first place. When a man feels genuinely admired and desired, it changes everything for him. He becomes more confident, more loving, and more invested in the relationship. He feels powerful not because he's trying to control anything, but because he knows he is deeply wanted. When that connection is strong, he doesn't just show up in body, he shows up in mind, in heart, and in soul. That kind of bond is powerful and hard to break. One of the biggest misunderstandings about men and intimacy is the idea that they only care about the physical part. While that's important, what really keeps the passion alive is the energy of playfulness and surprise. Men are naturally drawn to excitement, to the unexpected, to things that break the routine. When intimacy becomes predictable, when it follows the same script every time, it slowly starts to lose its spark. What men often long for, but won't usually admit, is a partner who brings creativity, energy, and spontaneity into the experience. Playfulness in intimacy is something that often goes unnoticed, but it matters a lot. Men don't just want intensity, they want joy. They want to laugh, to be teased, to feel the fun of being together. In the early stages of love, everything feels like an adventure. There's mystery, flirtation, and that feeling of exploring the unknown. But as time goes by, many couples fall into habits, and that playful spark can begin to fade. Bringing that sense of fun back, even in small ways, can keep the relationship feeling fresh and alive. A playful smile, a bold comment, a whisper at the right moment. These little things can shift the entire energy between you. They keep the attraction alive. Spontaneity is also a big part of this. Most men won't say it directly, but they crave variety, not because they're bored or dissatisfied, but because something new, even a little twist, can bring back that sense of excitement from the early days. There's a thrill in being surprised, in feeling like the moment is alive and full of possibility. Being spontaneous doesn't have to mean big, wild changes. It can be as simple as starting intimacy at an unexpected time, switching up the setting, or sending a flirty message during the day to build anticipation. A fresh way of touching, a different scent, or a sudden kiss can light a fire instantly. It's about keeping the connection awake and alive. Letting go and being fully present is another piece of the puzzle. Too often people get caught up in their own heads worrying about how they look or whether they're doing everything right. But overthinking takes you out of the moment, and nothing shuts down passion faster. What men really want is a partner who is completely in the moment, someone who enjoys the experience freely, who's not afraid to let go, and who isn't held back by self-conscious thoughts. That kind of free-spirited energy is magnetic. It turns a regular moment into something unforgettable. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real, open, and fully there with him. And sometimes it also means letting him take the lead while showing him that you can take control too when the time feels right. That balance of confidence, playfulness, and vulnerability is deeply attractive to a man. It gives him a space to be himself while knowing that you're just as engaged and present as he is. When these things come together, admiration, passion, playfulness, spontaneity, and presence, they create a kind of intimacy that touches every part of him. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's something he carries with him, something that makes him want to protect, love, and show up fully. And though he might never say all this out loud, you'll know it by the way he looks at you, the way he touches you, and the way he stays close long after the moment has passed. Men are often seen as the ones who always have to take the first step, the ones expected to lead. While many men don't mind this role, they also quietly hope their partner will sometimes surprise them by taking charge. When a woman confidently starts intimacy, it speaks volumes. It shows she's fully involved, fully present, and truly desires him. It makes him feel chosen, appreciated, and deeply connected. Being playful and spontaneous in intimacy isn't just about switching things up. It's about keeping the connection alive. It brings energy into the relationship. It keeps things exciting and unpredictable in a good way. When a man sees that his partner is open to exploring, being playful, and keeping the spark alive, it strengthens his desire and devotion. It tells him that he's not just someone she shares intimacy with. He's a vital part of something that keeps growing, something that never gets boring. Men are often misunderstood when it comes to intimacy. Many believe they're only after the physical side or that they lack emotional depth. But that's not true. Underneath it all, most men crave a strong emotional bond with their partner, even if they don't know how to say it out loud. To truly give himself to someone, mentally, emotionally, and physically, a man needs to feel accepted and approved of. He may never say it, but when that sense of acceptance is missing, he feels it deeply. At their core, men want to feel like they're enough, not just during intimate moments, but as a whole person, as a partner, a provider, and a protector. Society puts a lot of pressure on men to always be confident, capable, and tough. They rarely get space to show uncertainty, to be emotional, or to ask for support, especially in relationships. Often men feel they have to perform all the time instead of just being themselves. But deep down, they long for a safe space where they can let go of that pressure, where they can simply be who they are without fear of being judged. One of the most meaningful gifts a woman can offer is the feeling that he is valued, not just for what he does, but for who he is. This goes beyond just attraction. It's about showing him that his efforts, his personality, and his presence are truly appreciated. When a man feels that his partner really sees and values him, it creates a deep sense of emotional safety. That security allows him to open up more, to show affection, and to invest in the relationship with his whole heart. In intimacy, this emotional bond turns into something powerful, validation. Men want to feel like they are good lovers, that they are strong, attractive, and that what they bring into the relationship is truly meaningful. They want some sort of feedback, not criticism, but reassurance. A small gesture, a kind word, a soft touch, even a smile that shows joy, these can have a huge impact. When a man knows he's making his partner happy, it builds his confidence and makes the relationship even stronger. But it's not just about praise. Men also need emotional closeness. Many people think that for men, intimacy is mostly physical, but That's not true either. When there's no emotional connection, men feel it too, and it can hurt just as much. If he senses that his partner is distant or just going through the motions, it brings doubt into his mind. He may not say anything, but inside, he starts to question if he's still important to her. That's why being present matters so much. When a woman is truly in the moment, when she shows emotional engagement, not just physical, it tells him he still matters. It reassures him that their bond is real. Trust also plays a big role in creating emotional closeness. Vulnerability is hard for many men, especially in a world that tells them to always be tough and never show weakness. But in a loving relationship, being vulnerable is necessary. A man needs to feel safe enough to share his thoughts, his fears, and his needs without worrying that he'll be judged. When a woman creates that safe space for him, it changes everything. He no longer feels like he has to wear a mask or hold back. He knows he can be himself. And that kind of trust only deepens their connection. Showing that you approve of him isn't just something that matters during intimacy. It matters every day. Simple acts like saying thank you, noticing his efforts, or just spending quality time together build a strong foundation. That emotional connection makes intimacy more meaningful and full of love. When a man feels safe and appreciated, he's more likely to be affectionate, attentive, and loyal. In the end, men don't just want physical closeness. They want to feel understood, accepted, and truly appreciated. When a woman sees this and supports this emotional side of him, it strengthens their love on every level. Confidence is another key part of building deep intimacy. Men are naturally drawn to confident women. But confidence doesn't mean being perfect or fitting some unrealistic idea of beauty. Real confidence comes from knowing your worth, being comfortable in your own skin, and embracing who you are without fear. When a woman feels good about her body, her presence, and her desires, it's incredibly attractive. It draws a man in. It makes him want to be closer, to share more, and to commit more deeply. Some people think that to be confident, you have to be loud, bossy, or always in control. But that's not true. Real confidence can be soft. It shows in how a woman carries herself, how she looks at him, how she expresses herself without hesitation. Men are attracted to women who own their sensuality. A woman who isn't afraid to express her feelings or show her true self, even in vulnerable moments, triggers something deep inside a man. It tells him she feels secure, and that security opens the door to emotional freedom. Being fully present is just as important as being confident. A man wants a partner who is truly there with him, not distracted, not holding back, but fully engaged. Have you ever noticed how powerful eye contact can be? One deep look can create more connection than 100 words. When a woman is mentally and emotionally in the moment, not thinking about past mistakes or future worries, it pulls him in. It deepens the intimacy. He feels that connection and responds to it with his own focus and passion. Men are surprisingly aware of emotional energy. They can pick up on doubt, fear, or emotional distance, even if nothing is said. When a woman carries herself with quiet confidence, when she lets herself enjoy the moment without second guessing, it sends a strong message. It tells him she wants him, that he matters, and that she's fully there. That reassurance is powerful. It lifts his own confidence and makes him want to give more, love deeper, and be the best partner he can be. Another key part of confidence is being open about what you want. A lot of women stay quiet about their desires. Maybe they don't want to be judged. Maybe they think a man should just know. But no one can read minds. And most men actually want to know what pleases their partner. When a woman is able to say what she likes, what she needs, and what she wants to explore, it brings them closer, it helps build trust, it makes intimacy more exciting and fulfilling, and it shows him that she's confident enough to share her truth, which makes him respect and desire her even more. So in the end, what draws a man deeply into a relationship isn't just physical beauty or big romantic gestures. It's emotional honesty, it's confidence without pride, it's the willingness to be vulnerable, It's the quiet power of presence, the ability to communicate openly, and the courage to accept and give love fully. When a woman brings all of this into her relationship, she doesn't just win a man's attention, she earns his heart, his trust, and his lifelong respect. The truth is, men actually find it very attractive when a woman feels safe and open enough to share what she needs. It takes away the confusion, builds stronger trust, and makes the whole experience more satisfying for both people. A woman who is sure of herself won't hold back from guiding her partner, showing what feels good, and really enjoying the moment. This sets up a healthy cycle where both feel appreciated and excited. Being confident also means being okay with not being perfect. One of the biggest things that gets in the way of real closeness is being too self-aware. Worrying about looks, wondering if you're good enough, or trying to do everything perfectly can stop you from being fully present. But men usually don't look at intimacy the same way women fear they do. They're not checking every detail or expecting perfection. What they truly want is interest, joy, and a real connection. Most men would much rather be with a woman who's fully there, free, and having fun, than with someone who's worried about how she looks or whether she's doing it right. Confidence means letting go of those doubts and giving yourself permission to enjoy the moment completely. Confidence isn't just about how you feel about yourself, it's also about how you make him feel. When a woman is sure of herself, it helps him feel relaxed too. It gives him the space to be real, to show who he really is, and to enjoy the time together without pressure. That comfort builds a space where he doesn't feel like he has to always be perfect or prove himself. He can just be there with you, and that makes the relationship deeper and more passionate. True confidence and presence come from being real. When a woman fully accepts herself without apology and stands in her truth, it draws a man in, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally too. That kind of connection, built on confidence and being truly present, keeps the spark alive and makes intimacy deeply satisfying and long-lasting. One of the deepest emotional needs a man has in a relationship, even if he never says it out loud, is to feel respected for being a man. In today's world where gender roles are often questioned, many men feel like they're stuck between staying true to who they are and doing what society expects. But deep inside, every man wants to feel seen, appreciated, and respected for the traits that make him masculine. When a woman understands this and supports it, she opens the door to a closeness and loyalty that few people ever get to feel. Respecting a man's masculinity doesn't mean you become silent or follow outdated ideas. It means seeing his natural strengths, respecting his role as someone who protects and provides, even if he doesn't fit the usual image, and giving him the chance to lead when it's right. Men want to feel strong, useful, and like they make a real difference to the people they care about, especially their partners. If a man feels put down, judged, or constantly corrected, it damages his confidence. It lowers his desire and slowly weakens the connection he has with his partner. One of the most powerful ways to show respect for a man's masculinity is to admire him. Just like women want to feel emotionally close, men want to feel admired. They want to know their efforts, dreams, and strengths are being seen. When a woman notices and says something good about her man's skills, how hard he works, how he solves problems, or just his presence, it lifts him up in a powerful way. Even his sense of humor matters to him. It gives him meaning, shows him he's important, and reminds him that what he does truly counts. In intimacy, this kind of respect allows him to lead when it feels right, to start things, and to show his passion without fear of being judged. Many men have a quiet but strong desire to feel dominant during intimate moments, not in a harmful or controlling way, but in a way that lets them show their deep masculine energy. When a woman rejects or shuts down this side of him, it creates distance. But when she accepts it, supports his strength, and welcomes his boldness, it awakens something deep inside him. It makes him feel powerful, wanted, and emotionally close all at the same time. Respecting his masculinity doesn't mean staying quiet or never speaking up. A confident woman who respects her man knows she can speak her mind, ask for what she needs, and still let him feel like a man. Men don't want someone who just agrees with everything. They respect a woman who has her own voice, who challenges them in a good way, and who walks beside them as a true partner. But how you express yourself matters. A man is much more open to listening and responding when he feels respected instead of judged. One common mistake in relationships is mixing up respect with control. Some women, without meaning to, try to change their man, how he dresses, acts, or thinks. While helping and encouraging are good, constantly pointing out flaws or making him feel like he's not good enough hurts him. This kind of behavior slowly breaks down his confidence and can even weaken his attraction to his partner. A woman who truly respects her man doesn't try to change him completely. Instead, she focuses on what he does well, helps him grow, and supports his journey to being his best self. Another big part of respecting a man's masculinity is giving him the freedom to be open in his own way. Despite what people often think, men do have deep emotions. They've just been taught to hide them. Many have grown up with the idea that showing feelings makes them weak, so they hold it in. But deep down, they want a place where they can let their guard down. When a woman offers that safe space, where he doesn't have to be strong all the time, it creates a powerful emotional connection. Respect also shows in the way a woman talks to and about her man, both when he's around and when he's not. Putting him down, joking in hurtful ways, or comparing him to others can do real damage. He might not show it right away, but those small cuts add up and can break the bond between you over time. On the other hand, when a woman talks about her man with pride, lifts him up, says thank you, and truly values him, it touches his heart in a way nothing else can. It makes him love more deeply and stay loyal without question. Respecting a man's masculinity means seeing and appreciating the things that make him who he is. It means knowing he wants to feel strong, capable, and important, both in everyday life and in the bedroom. When a woman sees this, admires him, supports him, and gives him space to fully be himself, it builds a connection that goes beyond physical attraction. It lays the groundwork for deep trust. Men may not always say what they need, but they feel it strongly. And when you understand that, when you give him what he needs at that deep level, you don't just meet his physical wants. You awaken something powerful inside him. You create a relationship that's about more than just passion. It becomes about real love, lasting respect, and emotional closeness that stays strong for years to come.